Welcome to the Awake Space. This is your place for the inspiration to meet your aspirations. It's all about astrology and being effective with your wokeness. I'm Lori Rivers, your host. Well, we've got the moon in Cancer right now, in the balsamic phase, heading towards that new moon in Leo that everybody is so excited about. And we should be. Getting there, though, can be a bumpy ride. And it depends on who you are, and it depends on, quote unquote, the work you've done. It's kind of funny when we say, have you done the work? Because nobody really has a definition for the work. That used to drive me nuts when I was a young person. And when I say young, in my 20s. Because I was always working. I was always learning. I was always working. I was always trying to figure things out. Does that sound familiar? Is that you? Are you one of those people trying to figure it the hell out? What do they mean by the work? Yeah, I know. That's been me too. And at 52, I've done a lot of work. And I don't just mean folding clothes and doing laundry and washing dishes and writing books and even leading a liberation front based on crochet. Yes, I did. I formed the Crochet Liberation Front back in 2007 as a joke, and it took off. Taught me everything I needed to do what I'm doing now. Oh, sometimes the joke is on us. The work. I think that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, because with Saturn involved, and Saturn is involved with this, there are rewards to reap from work, but in our industrial age, we have so misconstrued what the work actually is. And if I can give you a little insight to help you on your journey, if you've been in the fields, if you have been lost, alone, wondering if everything you ever tried to do has been for nothing, as we sit on the precipice of immense and enduring change, this is for you. This is for you. And if a tear leaks out, that's okay. That's part of the work. It's an interesting couple of days leading up to the new moon on Sunday, August 8th, which happens to also be my father's birthday. So, after the year we've had in 2021, this is a time to seek our joy. And joy can be an unconditional state. And in an industrial consumerist economy, we have been trained to go that opposite direction. And that is one of the reasons so many people are lost. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So get ready for that. Some patron shout outs. And a little bit of maudlin celebration as I wonder and marvel at this momentum building in the community that is forming around the work I do, which is pretty freaking cool. Let's talk about the work. What does it mean to do the work from a spiritual, psychological, life perspective? Well, as an anthropologist, and that is at the core of who I am, studying what it is to be human. What does it mean to be human in all its gritty, gory glory? We've got such a shitty way of looking at the word work in our society. that somehow our value comes from what we produce. And we're not machines. We're not. We're animals. And we have forgotten that. Dominionism has done us a lot of harm. That's older than the Industrial Revolution. Patriarchy has a lot to answer for, and it's very, very old. It's not new, and it doesn't stem from the industrial economy. The industrial mindset is an extension of patriarchy, an extension of what happened 200 years into the Bronze Age, when we went from being hunter-gatherers into organized civilization. In fact, there was no organized warfare until 200 years into the Bronze Age. Up until then, all we can find in historical and archaeological fact is one-on-one violence. It's crimes of passion, anger, human behavior, because sometimes we lose our tempers, sometimes we get jealous, sometimes we've had enough. That shows up. That's always been there. But gathering a group of people on philosophical or theological basis to annihilate another group of people did not exist until 200 years into the Bronze Age. And that's what's being undone right now. 4,500 years of teaching people that they have no agency, that their destiny lies in some other entity's hand, whether you call it God or any other name of any other deity, or you think there's someone programming a simulation you live in. It's all the same premise. The work is understanding we have agency over our own lives. And when you start doing that work, it is absolutely terrifying to realize how much agency you really do possess. Now, I'm not talking about we attract bad things to ourselves. No. But how much power we have to change that. I remember when that first dawned on me and the amount of grief I felt, understanding that I did not have to be the victim of circumstance, and how long it had taken me to come to that understanding. As we sit in the balsamic phase of the moon, it's that kind of concept that we're being asked to release. Releasing the chains and tethers of that which is resistant to joy. We're so programmed to apologize for our joy and our enthusiasm, our hobbies and our delights are things we save for later, after we've proven our value to someone else, some boss, some authority figure. Like we have to prove our value. And we are watching a cultural split on those who believe human life has inherent value and those who believe it must be earned. I feel sorry for the people who believe our lives must be earned, that we somehow have to prove our worthiness. Because we are born worthy. And the only reason things come at us from mean-spiritedness, control, dominance, is because of training and patterns. It's all learned behavior. It really is. We've all learned that somehow we have to prove ourselves to someone. Now, people might blame that on Saturn, but I will argue It's not Saturn at all. If we look at Saturn itself, it's about discipline, drive, ambition. It can be control and dominance from a negative space, from an unevolved space. And that's what we're leaving as Saturn sits in Aquarius. That's the rulership of the collective. And it's important to ask ourselves, what do we collectively want? And if those who do dominance and control, those who sit in powers of authority, want us to fall in line as we walk to destruction, does it behoove us to resist? Or does it behoove us to be good little soldiers walking in line over the cliff? We're facing immense amount of time, a change in this time, immense. And on an individual level, the most subversive thing you can do is do the work. The work is owning your own agency, understanding that it is through your perspective that you shape reality. That is the work. And that is what I teach. And the reason I teach that is that is how I liberated myself. More than once. And then more than once put myself right back in the hole because of my perceptions. And those perceptions weren't necessarily of the world or other people. They were of myself, what I was worthy of, what was acceptable to me, what treatment. You can hear Malcolm shaking as he gets in the dirt. Malcolm is my dog. Those perceptions of worthiness of being loved, understanding what love is, understanding joy, that is what matters. Finding our agency. We have so much power, and we have all been told that we do not, that we are limited, because it benefited somebody else. When you look at religion and even spiritual circles, let's say people have left organized religion, and they have, especially in the Western world, they have left religion, but they have certainly carried the beliefs with them. Whether you believe there's someone coding a matrix, a simulation, or you believe that there's some deity controlling you or the traffic or your life, it is the same thing. It isn't different than saying there's a guy in a white robe with a long beard directing traffic. Because it is so painful to realize how much power you have over your own reality. When I realized that a lot of my suffering, notice I said a lot, was because of the continuation of habitual thoughts about myself, kept me there, kept me chained to beliefs about my capabilities, kept me chained to my ideas of quality of life, kept me chained in relationships that did not serve me. When I realized that I had the power to change that, and that I had allowed myself to be isolated, alone, feeling unworthy, feeling like I would never feel joy, not understanding joy, that had been the product of habitual thought habits. And I realized I had the power to to make that change. The tailspin I went into emotionally was agonizing, because I realized how much power I actually had over my own life and how much power I had been giving away. Now, I talked about that on one of the other podcasts, The Full Moon, so it seems rather appropriate to be kind of winding up that conversation in the balsamic phase of the moon, because the balsamic phase of the moon is the last phase of letting go before we enter into the new moon. And so you might want to go listen to that full moon episode, the Aquarius full moon from July. I talked about that. How when I realized how much power I had been giving to the abusers in my life, that it set me free. It set me free. I realized I didn't have to give them that power over me anymore. And that set off a chain of events where I started releasing just about anything that kept me bound. And the biggest chains were the ones I had created in my mind. So often when you come to me for a reading, you'll tell me your limitations. And sometimes I stop you from speaking and I say, stop, let me be the astrologer here. Let me point out things about you you've never been allowed to know about yourself. Because from the time we go to school, and even before then, depending on the family we come from, we are trained to put our trust in an authority figure who seems to know so much more about us than we know about ourselves. But it's not true. We're trained to put our faith in the perceptions of someone else. But that's not true. And that's why we suffer. Now, I'm not calling for anarchy. Anarchy doesn't work. We have to have some place we meet together because we are a species of social animals, even if for the next few years we need to be more judicious about how we come together, because we are facing a global collective problem, which is the pandemic. The virus will continue to mutate. We'll get mitigation underhand. By 2023, 2024, probably the events of this fall are what's going to push us there for people to really get the hint. And yet, in this time where we won't be able to gather mindlessly and follow the old program mindlessly, get up, get in the car, drive 2 hours, go to work, sit in an office with fluorescent lighting, let our butts go numb until we get up and walk to the water cooler, come back and do another mindless task to make somebody else more money while we get paid a pittance and get told we're lucky. That's what needs to end. Because our value doesn't come from that. And the reason people become depressed and the reason people are dissatisfied with life is because they are living inauthentically. Allowing someone else to assign our value. Think of how people feel when they're fired. It's not just the loss of income. That's scary because we live in a world that requires that. It's the judgment from someone else saying we're not worthy, because we've been trained to put our value in someone else's hands, to hand over our agency. And the work is in reclaiming our agency, our value, our worth. That is the work, and that is what I have dedicated my life to teaching. Astrology is one of the tools that I use. But in the many rabbit holes I have gone down in the last 30 years, the study of resiliency and how it is created in humans is one of the other tools, because I was trained by the founding researcher of resiliency, he didn't like being called doctor, H. Stephen Glenn, PhD. He passed away in the mid-2000s, but he personally mentored me, and I learned a great deal from him in how to communicate and assist people in finding their own value. Because that's what resiliency is. It's not strength. It's not getting up to get hit again. It's bouncing back from adverse circumstances. That's what it is. Because even though you do the work, it doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen. It does. It's how you deal with it. Does it take you down? Or do you get back up and go, all right, tomorrow's a new day? That's the work. Not putting our value in other people's hands, bringing our power back to ourselves. And if you really want to understand that, we look to the sun, Mercury, Venus, and then we train the moon. That's what I teach in Living by Luna. Being aware of your emotional response or reactivity. Because knowing the difference and knowing how much power you have over your own life experience is the work. It's what we see in the 8th house. It's what we see in the 12th house. And the reason why those are gritty is because that's where the magic lies. And there's nothing simple or easy about that kind of magic when we're undoing 4,500 years of social programming. And as we head to this new moon in Leo, the work is letting things go. I think I'm going to take a break here, and we'll talk about what to let go of after the patron shout. Well, this podcast couldn't happen without my patrons, to whom I am forever grateful, and not just because of the financial support. We have an amazing community in Discord. These are beautiful souls from all over the world. We even have a Kiwi. What? We have someone from New Zealand. How cool is that? Thank you, bud. Let's get going here. Let's take a look. Let's do the shout outs because, oh my gosh, I owe you guys everything. So let's take a look at who these people are. We've got CJ, Rihanna. Rihanna is a sweetheart. I just did a reading for her. What an amazing young woman who will do incredible things in life. Erin, Christina, Taylor, Becca, Melissa, Amanda, Shannon, Rachel, Camille, Angel, Shade, Hannah, Shannon, Zahara, Rita, Batia, Zach, Callahan. That's the newest people I see here. Let's see if I can see anybody else. Yep, I've read everybody else out. Let's take a look at the Discord for a minute. It's hopping. And a special shout out to those taking my 4-week workshop on how to read your birth chart. How to read your birth chart. We started with the energy of the planets and understanding the planets in depth, because I don't think that gets taught properly. So we're teaching it properly. Here we go. So Sister Luck and Magic have been busy in there. Dwabbit, who's an amazing reader, has been busy. Shells has been at it. Z-Bucks is new. Rihanna is in there. Let's see. Nancy, Melissafant, Becca. Let's see. Molly. These are all people who've joined in. Medium Carrie Wilson is in there occasionally. we've been talking about what's going on with the moon. Let's see. We've got, just looking. Our astrology memes have been getting pretty funny. We've got the Sunday link up thread where people can put links to their social media so that we can support each other and follow each other online. I like following all of you guys. You guys do interesting things and have beautiful lives that I like to follow. So that's what's going on in the Discord. And I want you all to jump on in because the water is nice and warm. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. All right, what is your work before the Leo new moon? So, getting there is a bumpy ride. We have the balsamic phase of the moon. That's always the phase of the moon before the new moon. So it's all about release. What are we releasing? That which resists joy. If you are attached to always finding the problem, if you are attached to always seeing what's wrong with you, if you are attached to people assigning your value, so if you care about what Mr. Wonderful thinks about you more than you care about what you think of yourself, let that shit go. What other people believe about you is not your business. It really isn't. And that's a hard one because we're all trained from the time we're little kids to seek outside approval. Now, am I telling you to be a narcissist and run around willy-nilly with scissors poking people? No. But if you don't value yourself, you're training everyone on how to treat you. Doesn't mean you get in people's faces and have a fight. That doesn't do any good because if you're fighting, you're still assigning the value to others. Your value in the hands of others. If you know your value, you train people how to treat you that way. So if people are getting in your face, if people are telling you how life is, it's okay to go take a break. You need to do an inventory of what you like about you, of the things you're good at. And if you are using other people and circumstances to make your mood, that needs to change. You need to put the attention on yourself. Okay. You need to put the attention on yourself. What are you good at? What are you capable of? So, in building resiliency, there is the significant 7. There are 3 principles and 4 skills that make up resiliency. The 3 principles are an understanding that I am capable. That's number 1. I am capable. The second is I am significant. That means my life matters. And it isn't my life matters because so-and-so likes me. It's just my life matters. Okay? My being on this planet matters. And I don't want you to hear, well, I don't think my life really matters. Yeah, it frickin' does. So just go with that. The third is I have influence over my own life, which is also called a locus of control. Okay. Now, having influence over our life, we want kind of a middle ground. We want a middle ground. If you have too big of an external locus of control, you're putting your power in everybody else's hands. And that's most of us in this world. And if you have too strong of an internal locus of control, then you're shutting people out. The goal is interdependence. We are a social species. But understanding that you do have influence over your own life. I may not be able to do anything about the circumstances around me, but I can check my attitude, right? I can check my attitude. That's the one thing I know I have influence over. And from there, magic happens. The skills are Interpersonal, that's the ability to communicate to other people. Intrapersonal, which is the relationship you have with yourself. Judgmental, which doesn't mean being a judgy McJudgerson. It means the ability to make decisions. And the fourth is systemic skills, understanding how to move throughout different systems. And systems are everywhere. These are the keys to resiliency. I want to focus on the top three. Knowing what you're capable of. Take an inventory. What are you capable of? I am capable means I can do things. What things can you do? One of my favorite statements that I came up with years ago when H. Stephen Glenn was training me was, well, I'm really good at learning. If I don't know how to do something, I'm able to learn how. We can extend that to say, if I don't know how to do something, I'm good at asking for help. There you go. So see, it isn't you being an island. It's not you never interacting with another human being. But it's recognizing your capabilities. What am I able to do? Years ago, I started training a man in his mid-40s who had gone undiagnosed with autism. He's on the spectrum. He had a lot of social issues, a lot of anger issues, and they were justified. And he came into my classroom at an online business school. The owners of the school didn't have a lot of ethics. And I decided to use my work with him. And 5 years into working with me, because he took my other training as I went along on my own independent route. One day, in one of the classes, he said, I know I can make a decision, and if it doesn't work out, I can make another one. That was huge. Using him as a case study is what has me able to go do a doctorate of education if I choose. I don't know that I want it now. I don't know that the schools will listen to me. But I could, with my system, help our educational system evolve from a factory mindset. You can always make a new decision. Just because you made one doesn't mean you can't make another. And yeah, there's consequences. We talked about Saturn a little bit. There's always consequences of everything. There's a consequence to every decision. Consequences are not always negative, right? That's why we say negative consequences, because sometimes there's a positive consequence. We never focus on those. That's what you're focusing on before the new moon. If you constantly focus on who did what for how many cookies, you're handing your power away. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel dejected. It's okay to feel rejected. It's okay to want more and not have it and be grouchy about it. It's okay to have all those feelings. But if you live in those feelings, your perspective is not one that leads to joy. And joy is unconditional. Joy is not happy based off what you got today. Joy is not based off of who said what or did what. Joy is an internal feeling. That it's just a state of being. And you can be joyful regardless. And feel joy. It's a trip if you haven't felt it a whole lot. That was one that really got me. That one was so hard because I didn't have the brain chemistry to start it. I had to learn. I had to go back, and I think you guys have heard my story about the giraffe. When I was 5 at the Portland Zoo, an interaction. But I also have a moment that I remember from when I was about 2.5, and I was sitting in the lawn, and Mom and Dad hadn't got it mowed yet because the dandelions were in bloom. And I was a little sad. I don't know what I was sad about, but I was a toddler and I was feeling a little sad. And then this bright yellow flower caught my eye, the dandelion. Dandelions are still my favorite flower, and almost all my favorite childhood memories involve dandelions in some way. Even the giraffe has a dandelion in that memory. That happy yellow color caught my eye. And the absolute peace and joy, that's the feeling I remember. Just looking at that yellow flower against the green grass. That gave me joy. That gave me delight. It's the simple things that shift our perceptions. Stop making it complicated. The work doesn't have to be arduous. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. You're good at stuff. Make a list. We talked about that at Coffee with Lori. We've got Living by Luna and Cosmic Surfers coming up this Sunday for the new moon. We'll be talking about it more then as well. So make an inventory list. What are you good at? What do you like about yourself? That's another list. What do you like about you? It can be physical. It can be character traits. I like my body. I didn't used to like my body. I used to have body dysmorphia so bad I couldn't look in a mirror. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't like what I saw. I felt ugly because my body had been so abused. I didn't trust it. And so in my late 30s, I started working on liking my body. And it made a big difference. I started the hard way. I started with my stretch marks. And I would look at them on my tummy. And I would rub my tummy. And I would remind myself that those stretch marks came from incubating 2 beautiful children. That meant the world to me. And that they were the marks of doing something rather remarkable. The remarkable marks. There we go. And then I went to my thighs because I didn't like my thighs. I always called them thunder thighs because I wasn't ever a skinny person. Even when I'm thin, I've got legs and a butt because I have Mars in Sag in the first house. If you've got a Sagittarius rising, you probably have remarkable legs and a good behind. But my body had never been the ideal growing up in media. Oh, the media has so much to answer for, doesn't it? Doesn't it? We give so much power to it. I took my power back about 15 years ago and decided I wasn't going to pay attention to the television and what it had to say. I already knew from studying journalism in high school and college, a little bit in college. If I stayed in the States, I probably would have gone into journalism. But I already knew that television isn't actual real journalism, it's broadcasting. There's a difference. They tell the news, but they're not the actual journalists. And so I turned it off and decided I wasn't really ever going to turn it on. I have great stories in my head, and I would rather learn the stories of you. You provide me all the entertainment I need in a reading. Your joys, your sorrows, your trials, your errors, your successes, your quest for self-understanding. My God, that's riveting stuff. Why on earth would I care what some person selling makeup has to say? I don't know. Why would I care about some quote-unquote celebrity and what they're doing, or politician? I care about what they are voting for because it impacts us. But honestly, I don't see them as great authorities. We wouldn't be in this mess if they knew what they were doing. So, take an inventory, guys. That's the work. And if you are in Living by Luna or Cosmic Surfers, do be sure to make it to class on Sunday. We'll definitely be recording it to make it happen. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I appreciate each and every one of you listening to my ramblings on this balsamic phase of the moon. I'm going to wind this up in the next segment, talking about the astrology, getting us to the new moon. Things to watch out for, things to be aware of, and how you can surf the cosmic tide. All right, this is what the astrology is looking like for the new moon, getting to the new moon. So Saturday is going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. But before that, today is what? Today is Thursday, August 5th. We're pretty good today. The moon will be sextiled in the evening with Uranus, so do keep an eye out for rumbles. That could be, we could see some seismic activity. Nothing huge, but be aware for little rumbles. We have, in the early hours of August 7th, and that would be around midnight, the moon, and leading into that, so from 11 p.m. on August 6th onwards, we've got the moon in opposition. Actually, pretty much most of the day of August 6th, the moon will be trine Neptune, which is retrograde, and opposing Pluto. And so it will be a very contentious day on Friday. We're going to see lots of stuff in the news cycle. We might be seeing some drums of war being spoken, and that could be about COVID, about as much as anything. Lots of political rhetoric, and emotions will be high. So it's really important to pull your energy inwards. And if you're going to take action of any kind, do be sure that you are doing so with response versus reactivity, because any kind of reactivity is going to blow up big time. The sun will be square Uranus. I always say Uranus on TikTok because I don't want the Uranus jokes. But anyway, the sun will be square Uranus. It's going to be quite a volatile day. We might see some natural events. We might see infrastructure failures as we continue to see what hasn't been done to maintain our life. And so we'll see some stuff on an internal level. Things might be really emotional. If you've been doing the work, though, you may have a really great day. So it depends on the amount of work you've been doing. For those who have already had a lot of life happen and you've survived a lot, these may be some incredible times where you kind of really come into yourself. So don't think it's all bad, because it's not. And then on August 7th, from the early morning, the moon enters Leo. And by evening, let me take a look here. I know, I never have these things memorized because I just look it up with my software, so give me a second. By evening, the moon will start squaring off with Uranus. Again, I believe any sizable seismic activity is probably going to be offshore. The big one isn't going to happen anytime soon. At least not this year. In California, anyway. And so just as the moon approaches new, it will be squaring off with Uranus, and that will be pretty contentious. It's early, well, where is that? That's 10 p.m. Pacific, so it's after midnight on the East Coast. Might be stuff happening outside of the U.S. in the Eastern Hemisphere, so we want to kind of keep our eye out for that on the mundane level. But for you personally, it might be an active dream life. You might not be able to sleep. There might be a lot of contention, a lot of emotionality. Do the work, do the work, do the work. Do the work I set out for you, and you will come out with confidence in the new moon. This is a new beginning, folks. And this goes for everybody. I know, everybody wants to know, what about me? You know, if you want to know about you, come to a reading. This impacts everybody. And I will have the forecast up on Patreon for the Leo moon and in its entirety. It's not just new because we move from balsamic into the new phase, and it's not new until it's new. Remember, astrology is about precision. And with that, I will leave you. Have a wonderful, wonderful balsamic phase of the moon, and ride those cosmic waves. Take your power back. Do the work.